You have spent your entire adult life chewing on total lies. The government, food corporations, and your own mother have completely brainwashed you into believing absolute garbage about what you put in your mouth. From fake superfoods to imaginary dietary toxins, your grocery list is a joke. Here are 50 ridiculous food myths you probably still defend at dinner parties. 1. Your mother probably bundled you up like a fragile Victorian child, swearing that 90% of your body heat escapes directly through your skull. That is a complete biological fabrication. The truth is, you lose heat from literally any part of your body that happens to be exposed to freezing wind. If you decided to shovel your driveway in February wearing a heavy winter coat, but absolutely no pants, your legs would instantly become massive thermal exhaust pipes. We only obsess over hats because our heads are usually the only thing sticking out of our layers. So wear a beanie to keep your ears from snapping off, but your skull isn't a magical chimney. 2. People love ordering a microscopic, ridiculously overpriced shot of espresso and acting like they just swallowed weapons-grade plutonium. Prepare for a reality check because that grim, burnt drip coffee sitting in the office break room actually packs way more caffeine. Sure, espresso is highly concentrated, but absolutely nobody in their right mind is chugging a big gulp of this stuff. If your ultimate goal is to vibrate violently through your 9 a.m. status meeting and start seeing sounds by lunch, you need the massive dark roast. Leave those delicate thimble cups with the foam swans to the hipsters and get yourself a real bucket of anxiety juice. 3. There is an entire industry dedicated to convincing you that honey is a mystical wellness elixir just because it was enthusiastically vomited up by a bee. Biologically speaking, your pancreas processes it almost exactly the same way it handles the dreaded high-fructose corn syrup. It is pure, unapologetic sugar that will violently spike your insulin levels. You aren't hacking your health or achieving spiritual enlightenment by stirring it into your chamomile tea. You are simply consuming a sweetener that costs $15 a jar, crystallizes after 2 weeks, and permanently glues its own lid shut just to spite you. 4. Reaching for that depressing bottle of fat-free ranch feels like a massive nutritional victory, but you are completely playing yourself. Without a decent source of fat, your digestive tract literally cannot absorb the fat-soluble vitamins trapped inside those expensive mixed greens. To make matters worse, food conglomerates load that fat-free sludge with processed sugar and artificial thickeners just to make it vaguely edible. Congratulations! You are forcing down a sad bowl of sugar-coated leaves that offer roughly the same nutritional value as wet cardboard. You would honestly be better off pouring bacon grease on your vegetables and actually enjoying your brief time on Earth. 5. The American dairy lobby spent decades and billions of dollars convincing us that cow secretions are the only thing keeping our human skeletons from turning to dust. It was a masterful piece of marketing fiction. You can easily get the exact same amount of calcium from dark leafy greens, almonds, and broccoli without suffering through hours of dairy-induced gastrointestinal distress. There is absolutely zero biological requirement for a grown adult with a mortgage to chug a beverage intended to grow a 400-pound baby calf. Your bones are going to be perfectly fine, so feel free to step away from the udder. 6. Hollywood apocalyptic thrillers have completely brainwashed the public into believing that a Twinkie will survive a nuclear holocaust and remain fluffy for centuries. In reality, that golden sponge cake has a miserable shelf life of about 45 days before it transforms into a deadly projectile. Despite the urban legends, they aren't manufactured from yellow plastic and immortal alien preservatives. They contain actual eggs and dairy products that go horribly, violently bad. The internet lied to you, Wall-E lied to you, and if you have a secret stash waiting for doomsday, you are going to break all your expensive dental crowns biting into a sugary brick. 7. Choosing brown sugar for your morning oatmeal always feels like the rustic, responsible choice for the health-conscious adult. Unfortunately, you are living a delicious, sticky lie. Brown sugar is quite literally just heavily refined, industrial white sugar that had some leftover molasses dumped back into the vat to change its complexion. It isn't raw, it isn't pure, and it certainly won't lower your cholesterol. It triggers the exact same massive insulin spike in your bloodstream as the cheap white stuff. You are just paying extra money for a slightly darker coat of paint designed to trick your brain into feeling mildly superior. 8. Your paranoid aunt loves to warn you that the microwave is actively blasting all the precious nutrients right out of your frozen vegetables with evil radiation. This is scientifically backwards. Because microwaves cook food incredibly fast and use virtually no water, they actually preserve significantly more vitamins than boiling them to death in a pot on the stove. You aren't nuking the health benefits of your dinner. You're just using a highly efficient, perfectly safe modern appliance while your aunt eats soggy, nutrient-depleted boiled carrots. 9. For decades, we were terrified of egg yolks, treating them like tiny yellow grenades that would instantly trigger a massive heart attack. Modern science has finally admitted that dietary cholesterol has almost zero impact on your actual blood cholesterol levels for the vast majority of humans. Ironically, the yolk happens to contain nearly all the essential vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats. By carefully scooping it out and flushing it, you are enthusiastically eating the tasteless, rubbery white part while tossing the actual superfood into the municipal sewer system. Stop ordering those deeply depressing egg white omelets and just eat the whole birdseed. 10. Your mother looked you dead in the eye and swore that if you dipped a toe in the public pool within 30 minutes of eating a hot dog, you would instantly cramp up and drown. It turns out she was just trying to buy herself half an hour of peace on a lawn chair. Your digestive system is perfectly capable of handling a turkey sandwich while your arms and legs furiously paddle around the shallow end. The absolute worst medical emergency you might face is a mild stitch in your side, not a dramatic sandwich-induced burial at sea while the lifeguard blows their whistle in a panic. 11. Cracking open a fortune cookie feels like the perfect ending to a massive Chinese takeout order, but you will never find one in Beijing unless it is sitting in a tacky tourist trap. These sugary prophecies were actually invented by Japanese immigrants living in California before becoming wildly popular across America. They hold about as much ancient Asian cultural significance as a Ford F-150. So when you crack one open to discover your lucky numbers for the lottery, you will never win. Remember, you are reading vague life advice typed up by a tired guy named Gary in a commercial bakery in Brooklyn. 12. The 5-second rule is quite possibly the most disgusting communal lie adults collectively agree to believe. Microscopic bacteria do not stand around your kitchen tiles with tiny stopwatches, politely giving you a grace period to rescue your dropped chicken nugget. Contamination happens the exact millisecond your food makes physical contact with the linoleum. If you want to consume floor food that is heavily seasoned with dust mites, shoe dirt, and golden retriever hair, that is entirely your prerogative. Just do not pretend there is some magical, invisible hygiene force field protecting your gastrointestinal tract from your own clumsiness. 13. Generations of backyard chefs are still violently overcooking pork chops until they resemble fossilized shoe leather, all because of an outdated medical panic from the Eisenhower administration. The parasite known as trichinosis is virtually non-existent in the modern commercial meat industry. The government actually updated the safety guidelines years ago, meaning it is perfectly safe to serve pork with a little juicy pink left in the center. Please stop forcing your dinner guests to aggressively saw through impossibly dry, chalky meat while proudly citing food safety. It isn't a health precaution anymore. It is just a tragic culinary crime against a pig. 14. The absolute fantasy of negative calorie foods needs to be dragged out back and put out of its misery right now. Aggressively chewing on a stalk of raw celery does not mysteriously burn more calories than the vegetable itself contains. You are not performing high-intensity interval training just by moving your jaw up and down like a cow. You are still absorbing energy, just a very depressing, flavorless amount of it. If human beings could actually lose body fat simply by eating a specific vegetable, we would have cured the obesity crisis with mandatory afternoon snack breaks decades ago. 15. Every elementary school teacher on the planet lied and told you that swallowing a piece of chewing gum meant it would aggressively stick to your stomach lining for 7 long years. Your digestive tract is not a sticky sidewalk. While your body cannot break down the synthetic rubber base, your internal plumbing treats it exactly like a swallowed button or a piece of tough corn. It simply rides the terrifying water slide of your intestines and violently exits your body a couple of days later completely intact. 16. Grabbing a brightly colored bottle of vitamin water after a mild walk Feels like a responsible adult decision, but it is actually one of the most brilliant marketing scams of our generation. You are essentially chugging flavored sugar water that happens to have a crushed-up multivitamin tossed into the industrial vat. It is liquid candy masquerading as a premium healthcare product. You would be infinitely better off just drinking a free glass of tap water from your kitchen sink and eating a literal orange. It costs a fraction of the price, and it doesn't pack 30 grams of unnecessary sweeteners into your bloodstream. 17. The moment someone sneezes in the office, half the staff suddenly starts violently chugging massive jugs of orange juice to ward off the plague. Extensive medical studies have proven that vitamin C does almost absolutely nothing to prevent a common cold from invading your respiratory system. If you are incredibly lucky, it might shorten your illness by about 4 hours. What you are actually doing by swallowing all those expensive immune booster packets is creating incredibly expensive, brightly colored urine. Your kidneys flush out the excess vitamins almost instantly, meaning you cannot bully your immune system into becoming invincible just by overdosing on citrus. 18. Food conglomerates absolutely love slapping the words artisan or handcrafted in elegant cursive letters across their cardboard packaging. From a legal standpoint in the United States, those fancy adjectives mean absolutely nothing. Your highly processed factory-made frozen pizza was not lovingly assembled by a passionate Italian man named Giuseppe standing near a rustic brick oven. It was violently squirted out of a machine on the exact same depressing conveyor belt as the generic store brand. You are simply paying a ridiculous $3 premium for a graphic designer's beautiful font choice and a completely imaginary culinary romance. 19. The religious obedience to drinking exactly 8 huge glasses of water every single day has zero legitimate medical backing. It is an arbitrary number that took on a life of its own. You actually absorb massive amounts of hydration from the food you chew, your morning coffee, and yes, even that terrible diet soda you love. If you are forcing room temperature tap water down your throat until your stomach physically sloshes when you walk, you need to stop. You aren't achieving superior cellular health. You are just wasting your afternoon creating a deeply personal relationship with every public bathroom in your zip code. 20. There is a terrifying rumor that if you skip breakfast, your metabolism instantly panics, shuts down entirely, and goes into a dramatic starvation mode to hoard belly fat. This is wildly exaggerated nonsense. Short-term fasting or missing a single bowl of oatmeal does not break your internal engine. What actually wrecks your metabolism is decades of chronic overeating and zero physical movement, not sleeping through your morning alarm. The human body survived ice ages and brutal famines. It is remarkably resilient and certainly not fragile enough to fall apart just because you pushed your lunch break back by 2 hours. 21. For several dark decades, the medical community aggressively bullied the American public into avoiding eggs, and they were catastrophically wrong. The scientific panic claimed eggs would instantly clog your arteries with grease. But we now know your liver naturally regulates its own cholesterol production regardless of your breakfast choices. Eggs are essentially a dirt-cheap biological superfood packed with nutrients. Millions of adults tragically denied themselves delicious, buttery scrambles for years, suffering through bowls of dry oats based on advice that has since been laughed out of the room. Go apologize to a chicken and cook yourself a massive omelet. 22. If you are still furious that you never reached 6 feet tall, stop blaming that illicit cup of coffee you sneaked in middle school. The myth that caffeine stunts childhood growth was literal corporate propaganda invented a century ago by a caffeine-free grain beverage company called Postum. It was a wildly successful smear campaign to scare mothers away from the coffee bean. There is absolutely zero scientific evidence connecting your espresso habit to your bone density. You are vertically challenged simply because your ancestors handed you short DNA, so leave the innocent morning roast out of your personal grievances. 23. Walking through the produce aisle and tossing absurdly expensive organic apples into your cart gives you a wonderful sense of moral superiority. However, if you genuinely believe organic means pesticide-free, you have been thoroughly scammed. Organic farmers absolutely douse their crops in pesticides. They just use naturally derived chemicals instead of synthetic ones. Some of those natural toxins require massive volumes to work and are terrible for the surrounding environment. You are essentially draining your bank account to eat slightly different agricultural chemicals. Go ahead and wash your vegetables thoroughly, or just learn to enjoy the taste of extremely expensive dirt. 24. That aggressive green paste sitting next to your spicy tuna roll that makes your sinuses feel like they are actively on fire is definitely not wasabi. You are actually eating a cheap industrial mixture of European horseradish, spicy mustard, and bright green artificial food coloring. Authentic wasabi is an incredibly rare, hyper-expensive root that has to be grated onto your plate mere seconds before you eat it, because it loses flavor instantly. Unless you are dining at a high-end restaurant in Tokyo, you have likely gone your entire adult life without ever tasting the real thing. Enjoy your spicy counterfeit sinus medication. 25. Every single weekend, an overconfident guy standing near a backyard grill repeats the sacred lie that aggressively searing a steak magically seals in the juices. That is a total violation of the laws of physics. Moisture violently escapes the meat the longer it sits over the flames, regardless of how dark the outside gets. Searing creates a beautiful, incredibly delicious crust known as the Maillard reaction, which is fantastic, but it provides zero waterproofing. If your expensive ribeye tastes like a dry kitchen sponge, it is because you left it on the grill for too long, not because you missed a pour. 26. People constantly complain that eating heavily spiced dishes is actively burning acidic holes through their stomach lining. In reality, medical science proved decades ago that almost all stomach ulcers are caused by a very specific bacteria called H. pylori, or simply by swallowing way too much ibuprofen for your lower back pain. Sure, dousing your dinner in ghost pepper hot sauce will definitely irritate an ulcer you already developed, but it did not strike the match that started the fire. Stop blaming glorious Mexican food for your ruined digestive system, and maybe take a look at your unbelievable stress levels instead. 27. Spotting the phrase "all natural" on a cardboard box makes consumers instantly assume the contents were gently harvested by woodland creatures. From a legal standpoint, the FDA barely regulates that phrase, rendering it functionally useless. Pure arsenic, deadly nightshade, and raw crude oil are all completely natural, but you wouldn't want them spread across your morning toast. Massive food conglomerates routinely slap that comforting label on highly processed, chemically altered junk food just to disarm your skepticism. Stop trusting the front of the packaging to tell you the truth. It is just a billboard designed to make you eat expensive garbage. 28. We have spent decades giving the entire country of France way too much culinary credit for the greatest potato-based side dish in human history. Fries are actually a glorious invention from Belgium. The confusion started during World War I when hungry American soldiers stumbled across them. Because the local Belgian army happened to speak French, the Americans completely mislabeled the snack, and the error stuck for a century. So, every time you mindlessly dunk a crispy potato strip into a pool of ketchup, you are actively disrespecting the true Belgian innovators who just want a little historical recognition. 29. The paranoid rumor that drinking unflavored sparkling water slowly dissolves the calcium right out of your human skeleton is absolute madness. The carbonation process simply creates harmless gas and water inside your stomach, not some highly corrosive, bone-melting acid. While chugging huge amounts of dark cola, packed with phosphoric acid, might cause some minor skeletal issues over a lifetime, your overpriced can of lemon seltzer is perfectly innocent. You are not actively liquefying your femurs. You are just choosing to aggressively hydrate yourself with expensive, bubbly water that tastes exactly like licking a television screen filled with static. 30. That heavy grinder of beautiful pink Himalayan sea salt sitting on your counter is absolutely not saving your cardiovascular system. On a chemical level, it is virtually identical to the cheap, boring white table salt you find in a diner. It delivers the exact same massive payload of sodium that aggressively spikes your blood pressure. You are willingly paying an insane 500% markup simply for pretty pink crystals and a few trace minerals that you could easily acquire by walking outside and licking a dirty rock from your driveway. It looks great on a steak, but it isn't medicine. 31. Whenever someone dramatically announces they hate sushi, Because they cannot stomach the texture of raw fish, they sound incredibly uneducated. The actual Japanese word sushi technically translates to sour tasting and refers specifically to the delicately seasoned, vinegared rice, not whatever protein is sitting on top. You can order completely legitimate sushi featuring cooked crab, sweet egg, or sliced avocado. The plain slices of raw, uncooked fish are actually called sashimi. So the next time you visit a restaurant, stop disrespecting the master chef who spent a decade perfecting his rice cooking technique, because the grain is the real star. 32. Every Thanksgiving, your uncle blames the tryptophan in the turkey for putting him into a localized coma on the living room sofa. That is a complete biological cop-out. Chicken and cheddar cheese actually contain significantly more tryptophan than a turkey does, yet nobody passes out after eating a quesadilla. You aren't falling asleep because of a magical poultry chemical. Your body is simply shutting down because you just aggressively shoveled 4,000 calories of butter, mashed potatoes, and cheap wine down your throat in 20 minutes. 33. College students and middle-aged adults alike live in absolute terror that every cheap beer they consume is permanently executing millions of precious brain cells. Medical science is happy to report that the cells themselves actually survive the weekend. What the alcohol does is temporarily damage the delicate ends of your neurons, making it incredibly difficult for them to successfully communicate, which perfectly explains why you keep walking face first into doorways. You are not permanently lobotomizing yourself at the bar. You are just violently unplugging the internet router inside your skull for a few hours until the system manages to reboot. 34. Ordering a decaf coffee late at night under the assumption that it contains absolutely zero stimulants is a fantastic way to ruin your sleep schedule. The decaffeination process is incredibly flawed, meaning a sneaky amount of caffeine always survives the chemical wash. If you happen to be one of those hypersensitive people who gets the jitters from looking at a teabag, that decaf cup is still going to mess with your REM cycle. If you sit down and drink 5 cups of decaf, your nervous system is going to react like you just downed a normal brew. It is merely reduced, not magically eliminated. 35. When you picture a tropical banana tree swaying in the breeze, you are actually imagining a plant that technically does not exist in nature. Bananas are botanically classified as the world's absolute largest herb, making them weirdly related to ginger root. That massive green trunk you see isn't made of solid wood at all. It's just a tight cylinder of overgrown, overlapping leaves. This means that every time you peel a banana, you are technically eating a giant, curved yellow berry that somehow sprouted out of a massive mutated blade of grass, which sounds like absolute madness but is biologically accurate. 36. Health bloggers love to scream that your morning cup of dark roast coffee is rapidly turning your internal organs into a shriveled, dehydrated raisin. This is a dramatic exaggeration. While it is entirely true that pure caffeine acts as a mild diuretic that makes you run to the restroom, the massive volume of hot water mixed into the cup completely offsets the loss. You would have to consume a physically impossible amount of dry espresso shots to actually lose more fluid than you are swallowing. Your body is perfectly hydrated, so you can safely pour yourself another mug without fearing sudden mummification. 37. There is a terrifying survivalist myth that brightly colored, exotic-looking mushrooms are highly poisonous, while the plain, boring white ones are perfectly safe to fry up in a pan. Believing that logic in the wilderness is a spectacularly fast way to end up in a morgue. One of the most lethal fungi on the entire planet is called the destroying angel, and it looks exactly like a pure, innocent, grocery store button mushroom. Just one small bite of that aggressively boring fungus will permanently shut down your liver. Unless you are an expert botanist, stop foraging for wild salad ingredients on your hiking trip. 38. Staring aggressively at a pot of water on the stove will not make it boil any faster, and neither will dumping a handful of salt into it. Home cooks constantly claim that salt forces the water to heat up quicker, but physics dictates the exact opposite. Adding sodium actually raises the boiling point of the liquid, meaning it technically takes a fraction of a second longer to see bubbles. You would have to dump 20 pounds of industrial salt into a tiny saucepan to notice any real temperature difference. You are only adding it to make your pasta taste less depressing, so stop pretending you're a scientist. 39. Your parents forced you to eat raw carrots by claiming they would magically grant you superhuman night vision. That entire concept was literal military propaganda. During World War II, the British government invented a secret radar system to shoot down bombers at night. To hide this advanced technology from the enemy, they published fake newspaper articles claiming their pilots just ate a massive amount of carrots. You were completely manipulated by an 80-year-old military psyop just so your mom could get you to eat your vegetables. 40. Your digestive metabolism does not own a wristwatch, and it certainly does not implement a strict curfew at 8 o'clock in the evening. A calorie holds the exact same amount of energy whether you swallow it at high noon or under the light of a full moon. The only reason people gain excess weight from late-night eating is that nobody is waking up at midnight to steam a piece of broccoli. You are gaining weight because you are mindlessly shoveling a family-sized bag of greasy potato chips into your face while binge-watching 6 hours of television. It is the absurd quantity, not the clock on the wall. 41. Watching a beautifully cooked medium-rare steak leak a pool of red liquid onto your plate makes some people physically panic because they think it is raw animal blood. If that were actual blood, the meat would taste like a rusty iron pipe. That delicious red juice is just water mixed with myoglobin, a completely harmless protein found in muscle tissue that turns red when exposed to oxygen. All the actual blood is drained at the processing facility. You are wiping up water, so stop ordering your steaks well done. 42. An entire generation of Americans treats monosodium glutamate like it is radioactive nuclear waste, complaining about imaginary migraines and severe dehydration. That massive nationwide hysteria was literally sparked by a single, highly questionable letter published in a medical journal back in the 1960s. In reality, MSG is a naturally occurring compound found heavily in innocent foods like fresh tomatoes and Parmesan cheese. It is absolutely hilarious that you will eagerly lick a thick layer of neon orange chemical dust off your fingers after destroying a bag of Doritos, but you suddenly become a strict health inspector when ordering a box of Chinese takeout. 43. Standing at the grocery store seafood counter and refusing to buy anything but fresh fish is a fantastic way to overpay for inferior quality. The shocking truth is that the majority of that beautiful, glistening fresh display was previously frozen anyway. Modern commercial fishing boats use massive industrial freezers to flash freeze their catch mere minutes after pulling it from the ocean, instantly locking in the flavor and texture. That expensive fresh fillet you're staring at has likely been violently thawed out and left sitting on a pile of melting crushed ice, slowly getting sadder by the hour. Stop fearing the frozen aisle. It is significantly more honest. 44. Serving a massive slice of German chocolate cake at a dinner party makes you feel incredibly cultured, but the recipe has absolutely nothing to do with the country of Germany. The incredibly sweet dessert was actually named after a random American baking company employee named Sam German, who invented a specific type of dark baking chocolate way back in the 1850s. When you bake one, you are not celebrating centuries of rich European culinary heritage. You are simply paying tribute to a mid-level corporate employee from the United States. It is ridiculously delicious, but authentically, it's about as German as a pickup truck. 45. Teenagers have spent decades aggressively avoiding chocolate bars under the tragic assumption that one bite will instantly spawn a massive volcano on their forehead. Dermatologists have spent years trying to kill this ridiculous myth. There is absolutely zero direct scientific link between eating pure cocoa and breaking out in acne. If your face looks like a pepperoni pizza, it is usually because of raging hormones, massive amounts of stress, or simply forgetting to wash your face, not because you treated yourself to a dark chocolate truffle after dinner. 46. Every exhausted parent on Earth firmly believes that feeding a toddler a slice of birthday cake will instantly transform them into a hyperactive demon. Scientific researchers have relentlessly tested this theory and concluded that the infamous sugar high is a total psychological placebo effect. The adults simply expect the kids to go completely feral, so they notice every loud noise. The actual cause of the screaming chaos at a birthday party is the pure adrenaline of being surrounded by jumping friends and loud toys, not the frosting. If you served them plates of sugar-free broccoli, they would still try to tear the roof off your house. 47. The internet absolutely loves to spread the terrifying meme that cheap margarine is chemically just one molecule away from being solid plastic. This statement only proves that people failed high school chemistry. By that exact same logic, the water you drink is just one atom away from being highly corrosive hydrogen peroxide. Adding or subtracting a single molecule completely changes the entire nature of a substance in the physical universe. Margarine might taste like absolute sadness compared to real butter, but you are not spreading melted Tupperware on your toast. 48. People willingly pay a massive premium for a carton of brown eggs because the earthy color makes them feel deeply connected to a rustic, imaginary farm aesthetic. You are being masterfully played by grocery store marketing tactics. The only actual difference between the products is the specific genetic breed of the bird. Brown-feathered chickens naturally lay brown eggs, and white chickens lay white ones. On a nutritional level, the slimy yolk inside is mathematically identical. You are literally draining your wallet just to purchase a slightly darker, aesthetically pleasing shell that is going straight into your kitchen garbage disposal anyway. 49. Slicing into a perfectly baked pumpkin pie is the ultimate Thanksgiving tradition. But your holiday centerpiece is a massive botanical lie. The vast majority of canned pumpkin puree sold in American supermarkets is actually just pulverized Dickinson squash. The FDA legally allows megacorporations to print the word pumpkin on the label because the texture and the bland flavor profile are virtually indistinguishable once you dump in a pound of cinnamon and nutmeg. You have enthusiastically been serving your beloved family a massive, sugary squash pie your entire adult life. And nobody sitting at the dining room table ever possessed the culinary skills to notice the deception. 50. We really need to have a serious, brutally honest conversation about the terrifying candy known as white chocolate. It legally and biologically does not qualify as real chocolate because it contains absolutely zero dark cocoa solids. The recipe is nothing more than an unholy, artificially sweetened mixture of pure cocoa butter, processed milk solids, and a mountain of refined sugar. You are essentially gnawing on a solid brick of sweetened, dairy-infused fat. If you genuinely enjoy the taste, that is perfectly fine, but you need to immediately stop referring to yourself as a chocolate connoisseur while happily chewing on a block of glorified vanilla lard. I know for a fact some of you stubborn boomers are still going to boil your pork chops to dust just out of pure spite. Tell me in the comments which scientific fact you absolutely refuse to accept because your grandma said otherwise. I thrive on your stubborn denial. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe stop proudly eating floor food.